Hey there, my name's DJ, and today we're going to talk about what the fuck's going on. Now, I've been trying to figure out what the fuck's going on for a while now. Just, in general, like, what's the nature of existence? What's going on, dude? Like, well, what's up? It's like that Four Non-Bong song, like, what's going on? I said, hey, hey. I said, hey, what's going on? Right? And, kind of, once we get to the point where we can actually think about this, really, we're already so caught up in our whole society, culture that, whether it's through the religious beliefs or from schools, things we're taught in schools, like certain types of scientific beliefs, kind of get this picture of what's going on, and sometimes we don't even really question it in the first place. And really, I think the science we're taught in schools and the religions really aren't that helpful here. And really, it's not the idea of science that I'm saying isn't helpful here. Science is cool. I like science. Done a lot of research on science. Like, a lot. But there's different types of views in science. It's not like there's just all scientists agree on one thing and it's a scientific fact and like that's it, we gotta figure it out. Like, check that one off. That's clearly not what's going on there. Really, or else science wouldn't change, first of all, which it does. Scientific views change. Oh, scientists exist, and this, and then they disagree on shit. So, like, clearly, it's not just so objective. Like, sometimes you're led to believe, like, oh, well, it's science. That means it has to be right. They did an experiment, dude. No, I mean, don't get me wrong, though. I'm not talking about science. Like, I'm not saying, like, oh, no, you can't do science, man. We're not justified. Which, is part of a view where, like, all science is bullshit. There's actually a lot of science I really like, but it's the mainstream scientific view that I don't. And it's a mainstream philosophical view, which I've studied a lot in school. I'm a philosopher, that I also disagree with. I don't think it really makes any fucking sense. And what it has to do with the nature of consciousness. Okay? So there's three kind of ways you can look at this. The one view is, and this is kind of the mainstream view, that materialism, physicalism, and we'll simplify it, just call it materialism, that everything's basically material manifestations, and consciousness is kind of a subsidiary, whatever the fuck I'm saying, some extra factor just produced in the brain, and it's sometimes called, like epiphenomenalism, that consciousness is some epiphenomenon in the brain. And, this view is deterministic. There's no free will. There's no soul. None of that shit. It's just kind of, that's what's going on there. And okay, it's a little more sophisticated than that. Like, there's not everybody who says, oh, they're a physicalist, says the same thing, and there's all this kind of shit going on. But that's basically it there. I mean, they don't think that there's consciousness is just some biological mechanism and not something intrinsic to the universe itself. And that's another view. That's kind of idealism. And then there's dualism, which is basically, there's consciousness, like Descartes spelled this out. I'm going to talk about Descartes a little bit here. So, here's the thing. So, I think the idealistic view makes more sense. Maybe even dualism. I'm not sure here. But what I don't think makes any fucking sense is fucking materialism. Like, that's not. And now we're at 4:20 in the video. Just want to point that out. Thought that was cool. Alright, so now back to this. Alright, so there's that. And so I've been trying to figure out what the fuck is really going on with consciousness idealism for a while. And that's hard to explain. I'm going to break it down kind of. See, I think, and this is old view, like our ancient ancestors, for the most part, like all held this. So what actually I'm going to talk about is this organic nature here. That there was this the living universe. You know, this is some good shit here. It's not. See, what happened was with. All right, well, let's just start with Descartes here. Let's just do some philosophy here. All right, so let's just imagine that there's absolutely fucking nothing. There's just nothing at all. Existence doesn't exist. There is no existence. No possibility for existence. There's no. It's just there's absolutely utter nothingness. No God, if you believe in something like that. You know, just no heaven, hell. You know, just no existence. Nothing. No consciousness. Not just none, dude. There's not. You get the idea here. All right. No existence. All right. So we'll start there. But there is existence. So, like, completely forget everything you have and be like, whoa. Like, this is your first memory. Like, first, you know. There is existence. And we know there's existence through consciousness. So, all we can really claim is that there is our consciousness. Like, you can only be sure of that. Like, you've never experienced anything else. Like, you don't know that what you perceive is real, you know? It's like the fucking Matrix and shit, like, you know, the movie. And the thing is, you can sit here and doubt that all you want, and, you know, that's cool. And I think it's important to consider that, like, that you don't really know, first of all, if you look at part of what there is agreements on in science, that, you know, what we see is first, like, very small percentage, like 0.0035%, depends on US, of what's actually out there. You know, so we only see a small percentage. So, like, there's all other kinds of energetic things going on that we don't see. And then on that, you know, an atom is like 99.999% empty space. And all this shit. So, like, what actually is even mainstream science shows us a reality that's far different from what we're seeing. Okay, and that's important. Now, I'm kind of just going off something there. Well, like, I'm just kind of rambling here. I'm just going to talk about all the different things. I really want to. One big point I'm going to make is that I don't think it fucking matters if you believe in God. That's not the point. What matters is what you say about it and what you do about it. Because there might be a point. There is an utter nihilism. There might be something important going on here. And so there might be something to these ideas. So what I'm worried about is the metaphysics, the metaphysical ideas to these ideas behind God. I think there might be something going on here, but I don't think we can let the religions be our sole source on that. Because maybe the religions have gotten corrupt and they're used to control people and they have this metaphysical understanding, but they use it for evil. Or if there's no objective good evil, it's not good for humanity. It's not good for people. And that's our major concern right now. Okay? Maybe it's not good for our consciousness. And that's the point. Okay? So, what the fuck am I really saying here? So, we get back. So, we know there's existence because of our consciousness. And my point is that consciousness is the base level. Like, consciousness is fundamental to existence. It's not, consciousness doesn't just come out like, all right, here's the basic mainstream view. All right, so you got the fucking Big Bang. Now there's our universe, time and space, and some material existence. You know, and this happens, right? So the Big Bang, and then, like, there's a lot of details here on, like, the gaseous states and all the heat, and all, you know, whatever. It's not the details of that are important. The whole view is what I'm talking about. So you got this, and then through the fundamental laws, which they, you know, think they've got all figured out here. Yeah, some people do. You know, through these fundamental laws of the governing of these interactions, the causal force, which that's what science tries to determine, causation, okay? There's planets, stars, galaxies, all that shit forms, things form, Earth forms, life comes around some point, there's a lot of little disagreements, but it's like, some point life came about, and then life evolved, and then eventually produced consciousness, and the consciousness is just some factor of life, right? And that's not necessarily exactly what's going on here, okay? Like, that picture, sometimes people are so dogmatically held on to it that it's really, that's the idea. We got that figured out, and now we need to fill in the rest of the details. But we know what's going on in that regard. But that's not fucking true. We don't know that's what's going on. Like, and that's not the case here, really. It's an important distinction. So Descartes one, he started doubting everything, and what you get down to, and that's like, Descartes, René Descartes, who's a French philosopher, he's the one famous for what in Latin is cogito ergo sum, which is I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I exist. And that's his point there of like, you can doubt everything, but you can't doubt your own existence, and that's kind of important. And so, but what Descartes did, which was fucked up, okay, is what he led to is a separation between the idea of God, the soul, and reality, or nature, okay? And then, so he basically, it was from sort of Descartes' work that the scientific revolution of, like, that time began. Okay, sort of. I mean, you can argue that. It's whatever. It's not the point. Okay, so Descartes did all that shit, and then he led to the separation. Now, this led to the view of nature working like a machine. So we took up this premise of nature working like a machine and tried to figure out what's going on with it and study it in that regard. Okay? But the previous views were more of an organic view to a living nature, and it's not nature working like a machine. So science was born out of this, sort of, okay, yeah, modern science, okay, doing these objective measures and isolating variables, creating this disconnected framework. And science has done a pretty good job of finding ways that we can interact with nature. Like, we can build airplanes and cars and do all this shit from studying the science of these interactions and how these things work. We isolate these variables and say, there's this, aerodynamics. Now we can build, now we have a better understanding for flight. Okay, right? And we've done a good job on that. But what science hasn't done, mainstream view, really, is the whole philosophical picture, whole ideology, And because science initially ignored consciousness, right? Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, they wanted to eliminate the subjective nature of it. They wanted to just study things objectively, right? And so there was no, you didn't talk about consciousness in science. Like, that wasn't really years ago. Now things are changing a little bit. Now there's a lot of science of consciousness, and there's a lot of disagreement on this. And really, a lot of it has to do with quantum mechanics and the fact that look up the double slit experiment in quantum mechanics, look up quantum consciousness. This shit is interesting, right? Okay, so it has to do with the fact that an observation or a measurement taken on a particle or wave will change the way it interacts. If you're trying to measure it as a wave, it appears to be a wave. Trying to measure it as a particle, it appears to be a particle, but I'm not going to get into details here. You can look that shit up on your own. Maybe I'll make some more videos about that. But what I'm trying to talk about is the metaphysics of God, or this whole idea. And that, but Descartes separated this idea of God and nature, or consciousness, which the soul, and nature, into this machine-like universe, okay? But this isn't, so this machine-like view of nature was born. That, and this premise, if you take it and try to figure out consciousness within this premise, because Descartes had the separation of the soul, and now they don't believe in that soul shit, and they're fuck the soul. What are you talking about, Descartes? We can't find it. We don't know where it is. Oh yeah, okay. And so if you try to explain consciousness through this machine-like universe, you're not going to figure it out right because your whole premise is flawed to begin with. Okay? So that's part of the flaw of it. And I just want to spell out a simple view. This isn't everything, just one simple view that it's not that consciousness comes out of this machine-like universe where, so all you are is just, like cogs and wheels and gears spinning in your head, man. Consciousness is just this illusion, man. You're not even real, dude. Okay? That's kind of a fucked up view, because if you didn't have free will, then, like, first of all, well, okay, you can either say you can choose to believe that you do have free will, which really throws our science, like the mainstream view, into a loop. Like, there's not much of an explanation for that at all. Like, it just doesn't fit into the picture. Okay? So, and if that's true, then, you have there's nothing to lose from actually believing that it's wrong and you do have free will because you didn't have a choice not to, Like, oh, dude, I have no choice but to say that I think I'm free, because if you're wrong, you didn't have the choice to begin with. Like, there was no, you couldn't be wrong because you didn't even have the choice. You know what I'm saying? But if you're right, then there's something way cool going on here. Maybe that's what we should be worried about. And that's what many of our ancient ancestors were worried about. Like, big time. And, study some of these ancient cultures. A lot of videos on YouTube that are pretty cool. So, you can study some of that, right? Plenty of them. Alright, look up, like, ancient knowledge and shit. Like, those are some good videos. Ancient consciousness. Alright, so anyways, back to this whole machine-like universe versus organic universe. So basically, kind of the premise is, and there's a lot deeper shit than this. I'm just going to kind of give you a basic view here. And probably make some more videos where I go into some deeper shit if you're interested, because this is very important. It's very important because what I'm saying is our general philosophical system is wrong and it needs to be fixed. And if we just believe in this bullshit philosophy, whether it's the mainstream religions or the mainstream science, they're both equally fucking wrong. And we're just wallowing away because we don't have a good philosophical ideology here, and it's just kind of bullshit. And what I really want to get into, too, which I'm not really going to discuss so much in this video, is the idea that I'm not really sure whether or not we're just wrong on accident, or there's some sort of ulterior motive going on from some high level where we're taught bad philosophy. And really, though, if you look at it and you think the religions are wrong, like you don't believe in any religious idea or theology, you can think that also. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, are we purposely, or is it accidentally wrong? Like, people just thought that, but they legitimately thought all this stuff? Or, like, did they purposely construct these fake ideas to control people or something, And really, when you look into it, all the religions are based on similar things. Like, they really all kind of stem down to, like, there's the story of Jesus is, like, there's a lot of similar beings that have, like, born on December 25th to a virgin with the 3 stars in the sky, or the 3 kings, which are 3 stars on the side, maybe. Okay. And, all that shit. So, and there's a lot of shit like that with all these holidays, and they really go down to kind of more astrological things. Like, they all tie into, like, it has to do with Christmas around December 25th because the winter solstice, and the 3 days, December 21st, the solstice, and the reset of all that shit. And so, like, religions all tie into this whole metaphysics, really, of the universe and how, if it's all one interconnected system there. But that's not really what you're taught so much in religions. And one thing that's kind of fucked up about the religions is, like, in, like, Christianity, which I'm mostly familiar with, is, like, there's, like, hidden texts. Like, they have, like, books, so, like, they don't release to the public. Like, they're, like, not there. Like, why the fuck, if it was just so honest, would we have hidden fucking texts? Like, they won't let us read. What the fuck's going on there? Like, what's in these books, man? And, the Bible they constructed, like, it's not like Jesus is like, all right, here's all my teachings. Put this out here. I'm Jesus. Or God came down like, listen, guys, here it is. You know, but like I say, you don't need to let the religions be your sole authority. Sole authority. And so what I'm saying is, science says the mainstream materialist picture is wrong. Or I think it might be wrong. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that, like, I got this shit figured out, because I don't. At all. Like, I'm just trying to work through this with you, okay? We'll just work through this together, man. And that's important, all right? Because, like, what we need to at least start doing is talking about this shit. Getting it out there. Like, questioning our fucking philosophical presumptions and shit. Like, we need to change our philosophies. We need to at least engage in it. Like, some people say you don't even need to do philosophy because you have science. Bill Nye fucking said this. Bill Nye, the science guy. Yeah. But that's ridiculous. Like, you need the philosophy to interpret the science and to get a whole picture. That's what I'm saying about, like, yeah, science has done a good job of how to engage in the universe and, like, interact and, like, build shit. But, like, do we really just want to keep building shit for the sake of building shit without considering, like, what the fuck we're doing? Like, do we need to just keep building shit and getting more shit? Because that's what we gotta do. We gotta keep building more shit. Like, that's how we get happy. Is it? Is that what we want to do? Like, just keep building more shit? Just because that's what we're supposed to do and just go out and work. We need to mainstream the workforce or whatever. That even makes sense. But, like, what? So what the fuck's going on here? We need to stop and think a little, like, what the fuck's going on? And do a little more engagement and consider that this is important, because ultimately we just want to feel good. We just want to be happy, right? That's really just what we want, no matter how to break it down. Like, what do you want a big house for and nice cars? It's like, well, because I think it'll make me happy or something, It's like, you don't want the house for the house. I mean, sure, but, like, I need shelter, man. It's like, yeah, sure, but you need shelter because when you're out in the rain and cold, like, it's not very fun. Like, I'm a philosophy about fun. I think the universe wants to have fun. Why wouldn't it? So that's kind of my whole picture here is consciousness is the most important thing to the universe. Even if there was some sort of, like the mainstream picture, mainstream philosophy, physicalism, materialism was right, consciousness is still the most important thing to the universe, okay? Because it is the awareness. It is the universe becoming aware of itself. Like, it's very important. What else could be more important than consciousness? And what's really cool is that consciousness, I mean, that's what I'm saying, it's not limited to the human brain. Or it's like human consciousness isn't the be-all, end-all of consciousness. Like, not all consciousness is of the human variety. There might be way greater consciousness to experience throughout the whole fucking universe, man. Like, yeah. And so that could be, like, really blissful and, like, a higher state of being. And maybe that's more of, like, what, they're saying is more like a heaven, and hell is, like, just different states of consciousness. But doesn't mean the whole other pictures, right? Because what I'm talking about is metaphysics. The metaphysics. All right. I don't know what that was. All right, so where were we? I kind of just keep jumping from topic to topic, but that's cool. That's what I do. Just get used to it. So, the machine-like universe. Yeah, that's what I was talking about at one point. And that's really where I wanted this to go. And, like, I've just rambled for 23 minutes now and, like, haven't really gotten with that. But that's cool. All right, so we're going to keep going with this because this is important. All right, so it's a separation. So, the only thing that really makes sense if you look at it, some sort of God is some sort of pantheism, which means, like, God is everything. So, like, God, dude, what's the universe? It's just the same thing. It's like, yeah, it is. Sure. And that's the thing. It's like, so what it matters is what you say from that point on. Because that's what we want to do. And so the point is, the cool point and the interesting point here is of what they were talking about, or what some people might be talking about, the good shit, because there's good shit and bad shit when it comes to all these ideas. All kind of spiritual ideas, okay? A lot of bad shit, really. A lot of dogma, a lot. Like, I'm sure we all understand that. Like, it's like anybody, anybody can be like, oh, I'm a devout religious, but that guy on the street saying God hates figs is, what the hell does God get in its figs? Oh, wait, no, is it? Whatever. So, what we're saying here, or what I'm saying here, other people are saying this too. A lot of other people, it's growing. The internet is amazing towards our communication. And, like, ultimately, it's all just communication. And that's a deeper topic, really. But, so the basic view I'm saying here is that there's more of an organic, nature is more of a living being. And so I really got I pieced together these ideas through studying a lot of this idea called orchestrated objective reduction. Because I just searched a bunch of, I just wanted to study the science of consciousness. Because there's good and bad shit on this. That's what I was saying. Not all science is the same. They don't all, scientists don't agree on the same shit. You can't just be no, dude, science says. It's well, which scientists? What the fuck? There's not just one science view. There's the mainstream view, right? There's the popular view, maybe. Which you can claim, but that's not all the views, So, all right. What I was saying is, I studied orchestrated objective reduction. This is a theory from Stuart Hammerhoff and Sir Roger Penrose. It's a pretty cool one. And also studied a lot of this idea of a fractal holographic universe, mostly from Nassim Haramein. Nassim. I can never figure out which one it is, but I feel like I could have figured that out, but whatever. Studied a lot of his work. I took this whole course on it and shit, man. It's interesting shit. And I don't know what's going on, dude. Me look into this yourself. Please do. All right. So I studied a lot of this, and I just want to put together this one little piece. I wanted to make a 5-minute video on this. Haven't even really gotten to it yet, but this is very, very important. This is really, really cool. All right. So basic premise here is that consciousness is fundamental. And it kind of makes sense when you really think about it that, how can there be anything at all if there's no awareness of its being? What sense does something exist if there's no fundamental awareness that it's existing? So the fundamental thing here is consciousness, and that's everything. And there's a lot of the ancient teachings, a lot of Eastern teachings, and all kinds of shit are about this consciousness first premise. More years people did that belief. It's still just a belief. We don't know what's going on. But just as much as, materialism is still a belief. It's not no, dude, that's the objective fact. Yeah. Everything is hard. Look, you can knock on it. It's well, it's really not, though. You can knock on it. That's fair. But that doesn't, it's not the point. Okay? So, the premise of this materialistic universe is that matter is inert and not living and not conscious. But there are other premises of this conscious universe, and as this is deep, you gotta... My whole point in then saying this isn't exactly to explain this whole view. It's to get something farther, which I think is pretty tangible. Tangible is kind of ironic because it's consciousness and not. But this is important. Of course, it's important. But it's pretty. I'm going to get a more simplified view later. And so, okay, it's all consciousness, all awareness, and look at a lot of consciousness is this feedback system. Okay, now what does that mean? I was trying to figure that out for a while. It's this, so it's a feedback loop, so it's an information flow. And you take it in and put it back out. If someone gives you feedback, it's an exchange, that's why I was saying it's all communication, okay? And this is from the universe, okay? So let's start with this basic picture. And it's way more complicated than this, but okay. The universe first creates some awareness of itself. It has boom on awareness. That's what it is. And ultimately, it's time and space. Time really trips me up, dude. Yeah. So, let's say the universe has this awareness of itself. feeds back this awareness of what it is, and then it creates more to itself. Okay, and this has to do with the idea of like quantum entanglement in systems. So basically, a system is created when it has an exchange of information within itself. So Nassim's view is that like everything is a living system. Everything that can be considered a living system has this exchange of information based on it brings in information from the external universe in through what is literally a black hole as it reduces down to a point of singularity. So within you, there is a point of singularity. This is what him saying, and he has all kinds of math to work this out. Like, this isn't just some fucking pseudoscience shit. Okay? This is like real shit here. Like I said, it's just disagreements because there's other investments in other fields of other types of scientific views, but it doesn't mean that his is wrong because the mainstream view doesn't accept it. There's much bigger shit on why it doesn't, because maybe it's... I'm going to get into that later, okay? So it all exchanges information. So what the cool part is it's basically everything... So it's consciousness and what we call life, what makes us living, is found in the same points across all manifested systems in the universe. So this is everything from an atom, even subatomic particles, really. Like, it starts with this Planck spherical unit, which is the smallest electromagnetic wavelength. Yeah. And then Nassim's got these, like, he calls them Planck spherical units. Yeah, I just said that. But they're like the most fundamental bit of our universe, okay? But it's not of all existence, okay? It's just kind of from our perspective. And our universe is only from our perspective. What else is there really? I don't know. But ultimately, it's infinite because I don't think there could be anything to limit it, right? And if there was, it would be an infinite chain. So, there you go. So, everything that's can be considered a system, which is like subatomic particles, atoms, cells, organisms, planets, stars, galaxies, galactic clusters, galactic superclusters. Okay. You know that? Like, so we're in a galactic cluster, the Milky Way, right? And then I believe it's called the Virgo, we're in the Milky Way galaxy. Then there's like a Virgo galactic cluster. And then there's this galactic supercluster, which we're a part of, called Laniakea, which means like immeasurable heaven in Hawaiian. Oh, that's kind of cool. But so they're all manifested systems working through an organization of themselves. And this organization has to do with how there's this consciousness. Now, what is consciousness fundamentally? Because it's not just human consciousness. If you think, oh, consciousness is, I'm being a dude. I'm walking down the street. I'm conscious. How you doing? What's up? It's a little more complicated than that. Well, it's not just limited to that. So our particular human consciousness is in the mode in which we process the information. So if we can look at it like this, there's all this energy out there, okay, and we take it in, which is way more than we just see. Seeing is just a small portion of visible light. Maybe it's only visible light to us because it's what we see. That doesn't make it objectively visible. I don't know. Okay, right? So there's all this energy out there which we take in, and then we process it and then radiate back out another field of energy, or into the same field, I guess. Because we would take in the energy, and this is all, he's got all this motherfucking math explained, man. And it was they take in the energy, okay? Because, like, right, you go look at a star, right? And you know how they say that, like, some of those stars are dead, right? Okay? Star was alive. And the light, you don't shoot out a fucking laser to see the star. The light comes to you, okay? So the entire universe converges onto your point of observation. You see how that would work there? Because, look, there's that star, and that one's fucking 2 billion light years old, or 2 billion light years gone, but you still see the light now because the light's traveling to you. Okay? And theoretically, the whole universe will be traveling to you. You just only see parts of it. Okay? So you get the whole universe converging onto you, which really would be some timeless manner because that would be the beginning of the universe that you can see out there. Okay? Well, this really isn't the point here. That's part of the point. But what I really want to spell out is this pretty cool view here. And so what it has to do with, you look into like quantum entanglement. And so what I'm getting at is, what we've done in science is isolated certain causal forces, we'll call them. I mean, there's like gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and they call those the four causal forces. And and then there's other laws and shit, but yeah, they call them laws. The universe's legal team, forcing the law. Alright, so what I'm getting at is, okay, but they isolate these variables and say that, like, oh, well, there's these and these, but there's really not a good, grand picture of how the universe organizes itself in the manner it does. And that's more of what this science is talking about. It's an organizing system, okay? That the universe works through this process of organization. And this process of organization is synonymous with consciousness, okay? But our consciousness is just the means through which our human body provides its organization and its information processing to itself. Okay, so the Earth works in a similar manner, and there's no reason why you could say the Earth is less conscious than we are. It's just different. Okay, or less living, particularly. It's just a system of electromagnetic information flow in and out in this feedback loop. Okay, and this has to do with this organization provided, and it has to do with, like, you can look into like quantum entanglement and shit. But like, they know plenty about it, but they don't have like grand theories on this. Except for, I mean, this is the most sophisticated one I found. And it's not like I went looking for this theory. I mean, I just started searching science of consciousness, and it took me a while to like start doubting the mainstream view. At first, I just dogmatically accepted that was the view. Like, that's what's, I mean, why would all these scientists be wrong? They know more than me. What the fuck? But now I've developed into a full-blown philosopher over the last several years, and I mean, just enough to think for myself. And it's not like I'm like doubting everyone. Like, there's a lot of whole views, and I've learned a lot from these people kind of secondhand. They're saying, no, man, the mainstream view's fucked up. Like, it's not right. Like, or at least what's important is to consider that it might not be right. Not saying like just reject it, but like at least we should be taught more than that view. Okay, and that, why are we only really taught that one? Like, this is the established. I mean, so it's kind of more of a religion in that aspect of like, no, just listen to us. Like, this is the view. You don't need to question it. In some regards, right? Not everyone's. I mean, not all schools teach it like that. But, just consider that, okay? So back to this whole entanglement and organization. So the universe's organization process through these feedback loops, which is synonymous with the consciousness of the existence, okay? It's the intrinsic awareness. So it feeds back, and what it ultimately feeds back to is something beyond space and time, because it defies these laws. And this is complicated shit that you can look into yourself if you're curious. We study a lot of space and time and some of this shit, which is deep shit. Okay? So what you have here is the organization occurring. Okay? That through, like, our bodies are maintained through their constant information feedback loop to organize ourselves into this, like, so you say, like, part of the scientific view is that, like, you get new molecules and atoms every, like several years or something. Like, the physical atoms are all different, but somehow you remain the same. Or, basically, like, your entity is, you're still, like, you feel like you have a stream of consciousness persistent. But all your atoms changed out. So what's really held together there? What's the organizing principle? And that's the point. It's this organizing principle. What it really is, I mean, shit, I don't know. But we could say something's there, okay? This organizing principle. And what I found interesting is now there's this other institute called the Heart Math Institute, or the Institute of Heart Math, whatever, same thing. And what they've discovered, and this is a whole new thing here, but I'm going to relate it back because this is a point I want to make. I think it's really fucking cool. All right, so the Heart Math Institute, they study the connections between, like, heart math, right, of how the communication systems in your body work. And what they've found is that there's a correlation between heart rhythms and emotions and how much the information in your body is organized. Okay? And so when you're in more happier states, more positive states of emotion, like we call love and joy, compassion, stuff that you like to feel, okay? Your body, your heart rhythms are more regular, more like sine waves, and your body, the brain, heart, the signals, there's more higher degree of communication going on there, okay? And more happy states, and obviously just the opposite of more bad states of emotion, like frustration, anger, all that shit. Okay, and then the graph of the heart wave is all jagged, and then there's less communication there between, like, the electrical signals and stuff they can measure and all that, right? And so what they found here is a correlation between this organization process and your state of emotion. Okay. So, what they found is that it's all the same organizing principle, okay? So that there's a correlation between organization states and more pleasant feelings. See what I'm getting at here? That when we are in better states of consciousness, there is more organization going on. And organization is how the universe built up. That's how the earth stays together. And like through, it's through these communication systems, these feedback loops. This is the whole thing works through these feedback loops, communication in this organization. Okay? And they found a correlation between the organization and better states of consciousness, better emotions, better feelings. And that's what kind of maybe people mean by this saying, like, love holds the world together or something like that. God is love. Because love, there's a correlation between that and how everything is manifested and organized and how it exists. Because, that's what science looks at this like. There's just these random forces, okay? And part of this is, they say like the fine-tuned universe or the anthropic principle. And this works based on their position that the universe is like a machine and working through these laws and these rigid laws in this inert machine, and that what they don't have an explanation for is why there would be these laws. Like, why are these laws versus, like, why do it work through this mathematical equation rather than, some adjustment to it? And because if it was slightly adjusted, it wouldn't work. So they don't know why it's like that. They just have these laws, but that's because that's not really what's going on here. What's going on here is, well, possibly. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to tell you what's really going on. I'm just gonna, put out other ideas. So what other people think might be going on is more of this organizational system to it, and that. So if there was just an infinite amount of random things that can be, it would make more sense and a more simple Occam's razor explanation to say that there is an organization system rather than just a fine complex of like 22 fine-tuned laws that have to be perfectly precise. Okay? And that's pretty cool. All right? So you get this whole point here, and this is my whole point, is that consciousness is the most important thing to existence. What else could be more important to existence itself rather than a state of feeling for itself? And that's what we are. We're the state of feeling of awareness of existence itself. Okay? Pretty much no matter how you look at it. Like, I don't think you can really much argue that one. Like, we are the awareness of existence itself, experience itself through this manner. Okay? And even if existence was fundamentally something non-conscious, the moment it became conscious and aware of itself would be very important to it. It'd be like, dude, What's up? I didn't know I was real. Whoa, hey, man, I'm an existence. Far out, bro. Right? So that's pretty cool. Like, that's the most important thing to existence is consciousness, right? And consciousness can be seen synonymous. The math works out. Like, that's how it looks to this organizational processes. And our consciousness is just the particular organization that particular way we process the information. Okay? That's human consciousness. And that's pretty cool. All right? And so, what I'll probably explain next time, because this video's got kind of long. I mean, if you're going to watch an hour video, I might as well just keep going. But maybe I will, maybe I won't. So, what heart math has also found, and this is actually what I really wanted to get into, so I probably will get into it, is how not only do your bodily systems work better when you're in more positive states of emotions, but the way you interact with others works better. And so you form this like group field and this group exchange of information in this group feedback loop. And groups work better when there's more pleasant states of emotions involved. Which, yeah, I mean, of course they do. I mean, you don't need to understand the complex energetic science behind it to realize that like people get along better in a group when they're in a better emotional state. Like, yeah, right? And so they found this and they can measure this. And that's pretty cool. And what has to do with the way that our minds and states of emotion can actually have causal influence on the world around us, which is not much understood through the mainstream materialistic view. Okay? But that's pretty cool. And so, if this consciousness is all these states of organization, or like the means in which the universe, it's fundamental, and then there's different levels of consciousness based on how the information is processed. And I don't really know, there's so many more details and questions I have here. So if you're like, well, what the fuck's information? What the fuck's this? What the fuck's that? Like, I'm with you. I'm trying to figure this out, but I'm just giving you this basic premise here, okay? So, if we're just a bunch of cells organized in a particular manner to create ourselves. That's my hypothesis really here, is that maybe we're a bunch of cells, like a bunch of cells, and our ability to communicate and interact with one another can create something higher, like a higher organism, a higher state of consciousness through an organization and feedback system. And maybe that's kind of the basic premise of the good metaphysics of God. And maybe the religions aren't really doing a good job of reaching that goal without a good understanding of that. But if that's all we're worried about and that's what we try to do, then we can get somewhere with this. And because it's all about creating better states of consciousness for ourselves, for existence, right? That's what matters. That's what we want to do. What else do we want to fucking do? We're going to create better states of consciousness. And so if we could figure out ways in which organizing and interacting and communicating and creating these systems, a better system, not the system, because this system's fucked up, like, you know, our whole workforce system and all this shit, man. We have a fucked up society, don't we? Shit. We go to war. Like, if we end this shit and create a better world, then maybe we could create better states of consciousness based on this understanding of these organization feedback loops and shit. Okay? And what I'll definitely get into in some other videos is maybe there's some other type of forces that don't want humanity to do that, and they perpetuate these divisions between science and religion and this division among people. And that's why we're at wars and stuff, because somebody wants it that way, because they don't want us to interact more and form this like higher organism, higher states of consciousness. Somehow they benefit off of that by not making us do that, by keeping it in this, you know, people talk about these vibrational states, and, you know, I can get into that in more detail in others, but I think I'm going to leave it here on that one, is this whole idea of, you know, that's what I'm talking about in this metaphysics, is of what they might have meant through the initial spiritual teachings is something like that, but maybe the religions aren't very helpful for that, and maybe if we just look at it that, which we can study through other means of science, okay? And also, maybe that's where the science is wrong, because they purposely want us. That's part of this whole conspiracy theory, bro. Like, you know, that like they're purposely taught all this shit wrong so that we don't understand the true nature of reality. Okay? It's deep shit, real deep shit. But, I mean, the major takeaways are that consciousness is fundamental to existence, and that it works, the universe works as a living, organized system. So, like, this would mean, like, the Earth is a living system. I've gone over that. And so is the sun, and so is the solar system, and so is the galaxy, and the galactic clusters, and all that shit, right? And then the universe itself would be one organized system. But then there would be other universes, theoretically, and by all likelihood, I mean, I would say definitely, really, that work perhaps in other ways, perhaps all within the same way in its interconnected structure. So, like, our whole universe is like a little cell for another universe or something like that, you know? Or maybe like a PSU for another universe. And it's just infinite all the way up and down. And, but still, consciousness would be the most important thing, no matter no matter what's really going on. Like, consciousness is the important thing and the cool thing. And that's what we need to worry about. And if we can get a better understanding of this, then maybe we can create better states of consciousness, higher states of consciousness. You know, a lot of people talk about humans transcending into this fifth dimensional state of consciousness. This is some real interesting shit, and it has to do with kind of what I was talking about of all that a little bit. I haven't really figured out much about this. That's very interesting shit. So I think I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll probably make some more videos, probably some shorter ones trying to explain this in other details and more important ideas here. Because that's what we need to start doing, is talking about philosophy and doing this shit and figuring this shit out and worry about our own consciousness and our own states of being and trying to realize that our whole society might not be structured in the way that is best for us. And we need to consider this and maybe do something about it. Yeah. So until next time, later, skater.